My wife showed up drunk to my best friend's bachelor party in Lingerie and yelled, "Don't touch me, I am not your property." When I tried to pull her out, I dumped her on the spot. Now she is crawling back. I am Neil, 36, a cybersecurity analyst. My life is built on precise, logical defenses. That order was destroyed the moment I met Kalista, 35, the walking embodiment of chaotic ambition. We met at a pretentious gallery opening in Brooklyn back in 2016. I was only there because my friend Coleman, whose bachelor party would later become my personal ground zero, had dragged me along. Coleman had promised free refreshments and easy networking. The only thing I ended up working with was Kalista, who cornered me by the canopy table and spent 20 minutes explaining how she was absolutely going to be the next big thing. Here is what you needed to understand about Kalista. She did not just want to be an actress, she needed everyone to know she was an actress. If she got a role in community theater, she would mention it 3 times in one conversation. If she was an extra in some indie film that went straight to streaming, you would think she had co-starred with Tom Cruise. The drive was almost admirable, except that it never resulted in anything tangible. We got married in October of 2018. It was a small ceremony, but her friends showed up dressed like they were attending the Oscars, while my friends wore the suits they had specifically purchased for the event. The marriage was stable for about 6 months. Then reality hit, and it hit her harder than it hit me. She auditioned non-stop and booked almost nothing. Instead of adjusting her expectations or developing any actual skills, she simply doubled down on the fantasy, and I was the guy financing it. I became her personal investment fund. Classes, headshots, professional makeup, expensive clothes for auditions, even specialized nutrition plans her agent had recommended. It was the entire future star starter pack. I kept paying because I confused enabling her with loyalty. I was the rock, the stable pillar, allowing her to pursue a passion that was not leading anywhere. The role was financially and emotionally draining. By 2022, I stopped believing in her dream entirely. I just kept financing it, maintaining the pretense to avoid the conflict of telling her that her path was a dead end. Her friend group did not help the situation. Sabine and Paloma were both single and equally delusional about their acting careers. They had convinced themselves that marriage was somehow holding Kalista back from truly committing to her craft. This was, of course, marriage to the man paying all her bills, but in their minds, stability was the enemy of art. They would have these gatherings at our apartment, often at my expense, where they would reinforce each other's worst ideas. I would hear them talking about disrupting the industry like they were tech entrepreneurs instead of 3 unemployed women hoping for a background role. It was a vicious cycle of delusion, and I was underwriting the entire operation. My fatigue grew into a cold, quiet resentment. I was not just her husband. I was her collateral damage, treated with disdain for being so stable and small-minded. The financial burden and the growing sense of being taken for granted created the perfect environment for the inevitable crisis. The resentment, quiet and steady, became impossible to ignore when my career exploded. I had spent years passively financing her ambition, but by early 2023, the imbalance was stark, and the conflict grew unavoidable. I was promoted to senior analyst, my salary basically doubled, and I began leading a team. I was moving forward into a structured, challenging future. Meanwhile, Kalista was still auditioning for the same student films and unpaid theater gigs she had been chasing for 5 years. My success was not a shared victory, it was a visible metric of her stagnation. It made her look at me with fresh contempt, reinforcing her friend's narrative that my boring, stable job was the antithesis of her artistic soul. The breaking point began to creep in around March. Coleman, my best friend, announced he was getting married. I was focused on planning his bachelor party weekend, a respite I desperately needed. But Kalista was consumed by her own crisis. About 2 weeks before the party, she started acting erratic, talking obsessively about the need to do something bold for her career. She was tired of waiting for opportunities to come to her. The emotional low point arrived that Tuesday. She received a rejection email from some casting director she had been chasing for months. It was not even a callback, just a form letter thanking her for her time. It was definitive proof that the conventional route, the route I had funded, was not working. She spent the entire night crying in the bathroom. I could hear her friends, Sabine and Paloma, through the door. They had come over to support her, which meant fueling the flames of her delusion. They told her she was too talented to keep getting overlooked. They insisted she needed to make people pay attention, that conventional routes were for people who lacked her passion. They argued she needed to try something unexpected. I stared at the ceiling, convinced that unexpected meant stupid and self-destructive. When it came to Kalista and her crew, that Thursday, 2 days before the party, I came home to find Kalista, Sabine, and Paloma huddled in the living room. Laptops were out, and they were giggling like teenagers plotting something desperate. The air instantly dissolved into defensive silence when I walked in, and they slammed the laptop shut. "Planning something?" I asked, already tired. "Just working on Kalista's social media presence," Sabine replied, giving me that smug, patronizing smile she reserved for boring husbands. "She needs to be more visible if she wants to get noticed." I did not think much of it, despite the immediate shift in their demeanor. Kalista was always trying some new, desperate strategy to start her non-existent career. I shrugged it off and kept moving. I was determined to avoid the drama. Friday night, I was packing for the bachelor party weekend. Kalista was on the couch, scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging my existence. I was looking forward to turning off my notifications and just enjoying a few hours where I did not have to think about her, or her debt, or her dreams. "I am leaving around 8 tomorrow morning," I told her, zipping my duffel bag. "Should be back Sunday afternoon." She said, not looking up. "You good here by yourself?" I pressed, trying to force a normal interaction. "I am always good by myself," she snapped, finally looking at me with that sharp resentment I had grown so used to. Some of us do not need constant supervision. There it was, the predictable, immediate passive aggression. I had gotten used to absorbing it, but it still landed every time. I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to engage. "Okay, then. I will text you when I get there." I left the house Saturday morning, closing the door on the tension, ready to embrace a weekend of peace. I was focused entirely on Coleman, determined to be present for him, unaware that the chaos I was desperately fleeing was already following me and was about to detonate. Desperately fleeing was already following me and was about to detonate. I drove upstate Saturday morning with 2 other friends from Coleman's circle, the 2-hour drive a welcome break from the anxiety of home. I had turned off my phone notifications, determined to be entirely present for Coleman's weekend. We arrived at the rental house around 11 in the morning. The place was stunning. Coleman had not spared any expense. He greeted us at the door, already holding a drink, grinning with the stupid, infectious joy of a man about to get married. "Gentlemen, welcome to my last weekend of freedom," he announced. Someone immediately handed me a drink, and the planned chaos began. The atmosphere was exactly what I had wanted: low-key, high-quality celebration. The poker table was set up with professional chips and the works. Coleman had hired a chef to cater for us. We spent the afternoon playing poker, roasting each other, and telling terrible stories from Coleman's dating past. I was down $50 and did not care. It was pure, masculine camaraderie, a mental reset button. By 9 o'clock that evening, we were in the perfect zone. We had fired up the grill and were eating steaks and lobster tails, the chef's timing perfect. Everyone was full but not sluggish. Music was playing, and a few guys were out on the deck smoking cigars. Heron was there, the loud, obnoxious guy who peaked in college. He was already amped up and pushing boundaries with his volume, but he was Coleman's friend, so we tolerated him. The energy was easy, comfortable, and contained. That is when Coleman's phone started blowing up with texts and calls. He looked down at the screen, a puzzled expression spreading across his face. "What the heck?" he said. We all heard it then loud, insistent knocking at the front door. Merrick, one of the guys who had driven up with me, went to check it out. He came back 30 seconds later, wearing the most confused, slightly alarmed expression I had ever seen. He just stared at me. Neil," he said slowly, "your wife is here?" My brain stuttered. "What?" "Kalista," Merrick clarified, eyes wide. "She is at the front door with 2 other women. They are all dressed like." He stopped himself, unwilling to finish the description. I walked to the front door, the easy calm of the weekend draining away instantly. Standing there were Kalista, Sabine, and Paloma. All 3 were wearing what could only be described as lingerie masquerading as outfits. Kalista had on a barely their red bodysuit that left nothing to the imagination. Sabine and Paloma were similarly underdressed in black lace and see-through panels, all 3 teetering in heels. Kalista came in hot. She was already loud and loose, slurring slightly, fueled by alcohol and the sloppy confidence you get when you stop second, guessing yourself. She was touching the door frame for balance, her pupils dilated. This was not a visit, it was an invasion. In stark contrast, Sabine and Paloma were stone-cold sober. They were not wobbling. Their eyes were sharp, and they held their phones up. They were filming everything with that creepy, focused intent, like producers running a shoot. They had positioned themselves for the best angles before Kalista even opened her mouth. Surprise. Kalista announced, her voice pitching up with manic, desperate energy. She held a microphone, an actual wireless microphone, in her hand. "We heard there was a bachelor party and thought we would provide some entertainment." Sabine was recording it all, adjusting her angle slightly. Paloma was whispering instructions to Kalista while keeping her own camera perfectly steady. "Kalista, what the heck are you doing?" I kept my voice low, trying to contain the humiliation that was about to explode into the room. "What does it look like?" She pushed past me into the house, unsteady but utterly committed to the spectacle. The quiet of the evening had been violently disrupted. Every head in the room was now staring at my wife. The chaos I had tried to escape had finally arrived. Kalista had pushed past me, fully committed to her spectacle. Her voice, amplified by the wireless microphone, cut through the stunned silence. "Hands off," she demanded, pulling away from my grip. "You're not my owner, just my husband. Only a husband." I flinched back. That declaration, delivered in a cheap red bodysuit in front of my closest friends, was the moment everything I had rationalized for years evaporated. She was not just chasing a dream, she was actively trying to humiliate and diminish me. I stood there, reeling from the raw violence of her statement. Coleman, seeing that I was momentarily paralyzed, stepped directly into Kalista's path. He was solid, immediately decisive. He put a hand up, not touching her, but blocking her progress. "No, Kalista. Not here. Not tonight. You weren't invited. You need to leave." He was not yelling, but his voice was absolute. He looked around the room at the dozen men staring in confusion. Phones away now. A few guys who had started recording immediately lowered their devices. Kalista tried to push past Coleman anyway. She was swaying, the manic energy starting to look fragile. "You don't understand," she pleaded, still holding the microphone like a prop. "I need this. I need people to see." Coleman looked at me, a question in his eyes. "Nail, what do you want to do?" "We are leaving," I said to Kalista, reaching for her hand again. She snatched it away. "Don't touch me, this is my moment. Your moment." I repeated, unable to keep the rage out of my voice. "Kalista, you are half naked at my best friend's bachelor party, offering to strip for a room full of men. This isn't a moment. This is a breakdown. Financed by the husband you despise. You don't understand," she shrieked. You never understand. I need exposure. I need people to see what I can do. Heron, the obnoxious friend, had been watching the entire exchange with a stupid, excited grin plastered across his face. He stumbled over, emboldened by the alcohol and the potential for drama. Come on, man. Let her perform. We are all adults here. Coleman stepped forward, placing himself between me and Heron. Heron, shut up. But Heron was too far gone to listen. Before Coleman could act, Heron grabbed Kalista's waist, pulling her toward him with a sickening possessiveness. Come on, sweetheart. Show us what you got, I didn't think. There was no conscious decision, just a blinding, defensive flash of fury. It was the absolute betrayal. The invasion, the humiliation, and the violation of her body followed by the violation of my boundary. That snapped my control. I just moved. My foot connected with Heron's face so hard I heard a sick, wet crack. He went down like a sack of bricks. Blood immediately began pouring from his nose. The room erupted. Guys were yelling, someone was calling Heron's name. Sabine and Paloma were screaming, but their phones were still up, capturing every angle of the chaos. Kalista stood there, frozen, still holding that useless microphone, staring at me with a bewildered expression. The plan was not supposed to end with blood on the carpet. Someone, I never found out who, shouted the words that brought the final, legal hammer down. I already called 911. Coleman was helping Heron sit up, but he looked at me, and in his expression, there was no judgment, only a grim understanding. He knew why I had done it. They cuffed me right there in front of everyone. As the officers led me out, I looked back at the room. Heron was bleeding. Coleman was trying to manage the situation. And Kalista was still standing in the middle of the room in her red lingerie, looking confused, like I was the one who had ruined her perfect performance. Just make sure they leave, I said to Coleman as they put me into the patrol car. They are already gone, Coleman assured me, his voice tight. I'm calling the lawyer first thing. As the patrol car pulled away from the house, the last image in my mind was the absurd, shocking sight of my wife in her costume of desperation. I realized with cold certainty that the physical violence I had just committed was minor compared to the total, systemic betrayal she had inflicted on our marriage. The marriage was dead. Everything was over. The marriage was dead. Everything was over. The drive to the police station was quiet and short. The local cop, an older guy who looked incredibly tired, separated me from the group and took my statement. I told him the precise, ugly truth. That guy grabbed my wife without her consent, and I reacted by kicking him in the face. He looked at Heron, then at Kalista's ridiculous outfit, and then back at me, sighing. I get it, but there's blood, witnesses, and technically that is assault. I have to take you in. They processed me through intake around midnight. Fingerprints, the mugshot, the whole degrading ritual designed to strip away your identity. Then they led me to the holding cell. It was exactly what you would expect: cold metal bench, the perpetual odor of industrial cleaner, and fluorescent lights that never dimmed. The light was the worst part, always on, always humming. I did not sleep. I could not. My mind raced, replaying the crash, the kick, the sound of Kalista's voice saying, "Only a husband." The exhaustion was immediate and deep, but the adrenaline kept me pinned to the cold metal bench. I was hungry, my muscles ached, and I could not shake the smell of that industrial cleaner. In that constant fluorescent glare, somewhere between the awful breakfast tray and the endless, humming silence, the shift happened. The physical degradation and the hunger stripped away the emotional noise. The loyalty, the pity, the years of self-deception. What was left was one cold, clear truth. I had been arrested, processed, and held in a cage. I realized I was done negotiating with people who treated me like collateral damage in their own stupid plans. I was done financing a lie. I was done being the stable foundation she despised, and I was done with avoidance. The thought was clinical, almost detached. My loyalty had been a vulnerability. My patience had been misinterpreted as weakness. Now, I would use my analytical training for self-preservation. I would apply the same precision I used to defend corporate networks to defending my own life. I needed to isolate the threat and eliminate it completely. Late the next afternoon, maybe 16 hours after they brought me in, a different cop came by. Neil, your lawyer posted bail. Court dates in 3 weeks. You are free to go. I walked out into the late daylight. Coleman was waiting in his car in the parking lot. He looked haggard. Get in, he said. We did not talk much on the drive back to the house. He told me he had called his family's lawyer, and that Heron, realizing he had initiated the physical contact, had declined to press charges. The lawyer was confident the charge would be reduced to disorderly conduct and dismissed entirely. Thank you, I said. It was not enough to cover the debt I owed him. Don't thank me, Coleman replied. You shouldn't have been arrested in the first place. He paused. The second you left, those 3 were gone. Your bags are packed in your car. I got into my own car and started the 2-hour drive back to the city. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, not from fear or regret, but from the adrenaline and exhaustion finally crashing out of my system. I was running on fumes and a cold, razor-sharp sense of determination. I knew exactly what needed to happen next: total severance. I was done with avoidance. I was ready for action. Total severance. I was done with avoidance. I was ready for action. I got home around 7 o'clock that evening, exhausted but focused, the cold clarity from the jail cell still governing my every movement. I did not waste a single second on emotion. The first thing I did was call my lawyer and leave a voicemail explaining that I needed to file for divorce immediately and that the prenup needed to be enforced. I was calm, providing all the relevant details, as if reporting a system breach. The second order of business was locking down my side of the financial mess before it turned into a hostage situation. As a cybersecurity analyst, I knew the necessity of securing the perimeter. I reset passwords where I was allowed, established new ones with 2-factor authentication, and ensured nothing could be quietly drained overnight. On the joint checking account, I moved exactly 50% into a separate account in my name. I left the rest untouched for immediate bills, logging every cent like I was building a case file. Screenshots, timestamps, confirmation emails, the whole boring digital paper trail. If a judge ever asked why, the answer was simple: I was not hiding money. I was preventing a midnight wipeout while the divorce was being filed. The third thing I did was begin packing all of Kalista's belongings. I stuffed everything into heavy-duty garbage bags and boxes. It took me about an hour of quiet, clinical labor. While I was packing the items on her nightstand, I found her journal. It was just sitting there, not even hidden. Curiosity, or perhaps professional diligence, made me open it. The journal was a shrine to her own desperation. It contained weeks of entries where she was hyping herself up, like she was already famous, writing out little plans with Sabine and Paloma as if they were running a studio instead of 3 unemployed women. She had scribbled things like, "This is how you get noticed. Bold girls win. I am not waiting anymore." There were whole pages about how crashing a bachelor party naked with a microphone was going to be her breakthrough moment. Not because she thought she had talent, but because she truly believed chaos was a shortcut. She even had cringe rehearsal notes: smile when I walk in, own the room, don't let Neil ruin the vibe. If they laugh, that is good. If they stare, that is better. She wrote about viral energy. The same way broke men talk about crypto. It was pure fantasy dressed up as strategy. Of course, I was the villain, entry after entry about how I was safe and small-minded. And don't get what artists have to do. This was the woman who had just called me only a husband, while I was the one paying for her classes, her headshots, and her entire cosplay of being the next big thing. She was not planning a career move. She was planning a tantrum with a spotlight. I took photos of the relevant pages with my phone, documenting the clear malicious intent and the premeditation of the stunt. I put the journal back in her box. She could keep her little manifesto. I was just finishing up when I heard her car pull up outside. It was around 10 o'clock at night. Kalista stumbled in through the front door, still wearing that ridiculous red outfit. Sabine and Paloma trailed behind her. Kalista looked dazed, in that exhausted coming down state where reality starts to creep back in. Sabine and Paloma looked tired but clear-eyed, still operating with a producer's focus. All three were clearly convinced they had just had the adventure of a lifetime. They stopped dead when they saw the bags. "Neil," Kalista said, her brain struggling to process what she was seeing. "What are you doing? What does it look like?" I replied, my voice flat, empty of any residual warmth or pain. "I am kicking you out." "You can't kick me out," she shouted, her voice going shrill. "This is my home, too. We are separated as of last night," I stated. "My lawyer told me to make that clear. This situation needs to not turn physical." "So, you are leaving." Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was a text message from Heron. I knew before I opened it that I would not like what was inside, but I opened it anyway. It was a 10-second video clip. Kalista giving Heron a lap dance in a bar downtown. Full contact, his hands on her hips while she was grinding on him. Other guys were cheering in the background. The timestamp showed it was after they had left Coleman's party. She had been thrown out for trying to stage a spectacle, and her response was to go stage another one. Then the text came through. "Your wife knows how to party, bro. Thanks for the entertainment." That was the evidence. Heron had intended to humiliate me, sending me proof of infidelity like it was a trophy. He had no idea he had just handed me the final, necessary piece of evidence. He had provided the key to my total vindication and his own professional ruin. The video from Heron confirmed my path and sealed his fate. He had tried to win a petty, toxic battle, and in doing so, he had handed me the tactical nuclear option. My plan for a clean break expanded into a systematic campaign of justified consequences. Monday evening, I executed the first phase against Heron. My research had shown he worked in commercial real estate, where reputation was everything, and that he had a serious girlfriend named Hadley. I kept the communication clinical, devoid of emotion. I sent Hadley an email. "Hadley, I was at the bachelor party this weekend. I think you should see this before you make any long-term decisions." The video and messages are from Heron's phone. I attached the video of Kalista's lap dance and the screenshots of Heron's text to me. Just the facts. The next day, she wrote back. She confirmed that after talking to 3 other guys from the party, she knew the truth. They had been ring shopping, and she had just been saved from marrying a lie. That same Tuesday, I handled the workplace situation. Heron's company had an anonymous ethics reporting line on their website. I kept the report cold. Employee Heron was recorded on video engaging in physical contact of a sexual nature with an individual at a private event. Employee subsequently distributed this video to others via text message with commentary. Evidence attached. Documenting in case of future liability. HR does not need a moral lecture, they just need documented liability. Within 2 days, the company Grapevine confirmed Heron was on leave pending review. This was not Heron's first HR problem, and my evidence had become the final, undeniable nail in a coffin HR had been building for months. He was toxic, and now he was a public relations risk. The company could not afford to sweep this one under the rug. Meanwhile, Coleman called me on Wednesday afternoon. "Nail, man, I don't even know what to say." "Then don't say anything," I replied. He appreciated the sentiment. He confirmed he had kicked Heron out of the wedding party and uninvited him entirely. What he did, sending you that video, those texts. That's not okay. That's not what a friend does. Coleman's decisiveness was a comfort. I knew my best friend had my back. The fallout surrounding Kalista and her friends was equally swift, but more violent. The day after the crash, Coleman's fiancée, Anya, went to confront Kalista and her 2 actresses, wanting to tell them exactly what they had done by trying to seduce her soon-to-be husband. Instead of apologizing, the three women ganged up on her. When Anya tried to leave, Sabine shoved her into a wall, and Paloma grabbed her arm hard enough to leave bruises. Kalista just stood there and watched. Anya filed a police report that same day, complete with photos of the bruises and, crucially, security footage showing exactly who put hands on whom first. The video evidence, coupled with visible injuries, meant the three of them had no leverage. Sabine and Paloma were offered plea deals for misdemeanor assault, resulting in probation and fines. Kalista was dragged into it as an accomplice, since she was present and made no effort to intervene. All three women now had assault charges on their records. Their breakthrough moment had guaranteed they would show up on background checks. I heard later that their agents dropped them almost immediately. Good luck auditioning for roles when your legal file includes an assault conviction. The dominoes fell exactly as they were supposed to. I did not have to push them. I just had to make sure the right people knew what happened. Heron's life had detonated on contact with daylight. And Kalista's stunt had not only finished her marriage, but had also destroyed the delusional acting careers of her entire hype squad. Justice, cold and clinical, was being served. My lawyer served Kalista the divorce papers that same week. She predictably tried to argue the duress angle on the prenup, but her own lawyer shut that down in about 48 hours. He told her straight up she had no case, that the prenup was airtight, and fighting it would just cost her money she did not have. She signed 3 weeks later. The divorce was clean, quick, and left her nothing to fight over except the consequences she had already earned. The prenup was enforced exactly as written. She got back what she had brought into the marriage, which amounted to her car and her personal belongings. I kept the apartment, the savings, and everything I had built while she was off pursuing her supposed career. Kalista moved out within a week of signing the papers. I later heard she went back to Ohio to live with her parents. My criminal charge, the one resulting from the kick, was handled exactly as Coleman's family lawyer predicted. 5 witness statements all confirming Heron initiated unwanted physical contact with Kalista meant the district attorney reduced it to disorderly conduct, which was dismissed entirely after I completed a 1-day anger management course. My record remained clean. 2 months after the divorce was finalized, there was a knock on my apartment door. It was late evening and unexpected. I looked through the peephole. It was Kalista. She looked rough, entirely different from the manic, theatrical persona I had last seen. No makeup, hair pulled back messily, wearing sweatpants and a hoodie that looked worn out. She had lost weight, not in a healthy way, but in the exhausted way of someone who has been crying for weeks and forgetting to eat. I opened the door, but I did not invite her in. I stood there, blocking the doorway, one hand on the frame. "Nail, please," she whispered, her voice fragile. "Can we just talk?" "Nothing to talk about," I replied, the lack of inflection in my voice sounding alien even to me. "We are divorced. You signed the papers. Move on. I know I messed up. I know I did," she pleaded, tears welling up instantly. "But we can work through this. People get past things like this all the time. I'll get help. I'll stop trying to act. I'll be better. I'll be whatever you need me to be." I laughed. It was involuntary, a short, sharp sound of disbelief that felt like it came from years of suppressed frustration. She rushed to explain, tears flowing for real now. She insisted Heron kept pushing, the guys kept encouraging it, and she did not know what to do. I cut her off. "You chose to stay, Kalista. You chose to dance. You chose to grind on him while everyone watched and filmed it. Those were your choices. Nobody forced you." Her face crumpled. "I don't know what I was thinking. I thought it would be fun. I thought it would make me feel good about myself. I didn't think about you. I should have. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Okay," I said, entirely unmoved. "You are sorry. Got it. Anything else?" She went into the full pathetic pitch. She told me everyone hates her now. Sabine and Paloma had cut her off after the police report, scared the assault charges would blow back on them. She was toxic, they told her, and they wanted distance. She wiped her nose with her sleeve. Her agent had dropped her. Nobody would hire her. She was working at a coffee shop in Ohio making minimum wage, living in her childhood bedroom like she was 16 again. Sounds rough. I conceded. I'm drowning. The girls caught assault charges, and I'm stuck back home with nothing. I threw away the best thing in my life for one stupid night. Please, I need your help. Just temporarily, just enough to get back on my feet. Maybe you could send me some money. Just until I get settled. I'll pay you back. I promise. I stared at her for a long moment, allowing the silence to stretch. Allowing her to feel exactly how little her words meant to me now. What about everything I sacrificed for you? She tried again, her voice breaking. Kalista, let's be really clear about something, I said. You didn't sacrifice anything for me. I sacrificed everything for you to chase a delusion. I thought you loved me, she whispered. I did. I answered honestly. Then you showed me exactly who you are, and I believe you. You made your choices, Kalista. You chose to humiliate me. You chose to throw away our marriage for attention. You chose your delusional acting career over basic respect. And now you are dealing with the consequences of those choices. That is not my problem anymore. But I don't care what you need. I cut her off, my voice finally carrying a cold, final edge. You don't get to show up here 2 months after our divorce begging for money like I am some kind of backup plan. You are not my wife. You are not my problem. You are nothing to me. Her face went pale, the reality of the statement finally hitting her. Go home, Kalista. Go back to Ohio. Work your coffee shop job. Live in your childhood bedroom. Figure out your life on your own because I am done. I stepped back and closed the door, locking it firmly. I could hear her crying through the door for a few minutes, soft, pathetic little knocks. I did not answer. Eventually, I heard a car start, and she was gone. I went back to my couch and put on a game. I did not think about her again that night. She had made her choices, and I had my life back. That was all the closure I needed. All the closure I needed.